Ja sam Irena Đorđević, dolazim iz Banja Luke. Član sam jevrejske opštine Banja Luka i radim u Međureligijskom odboru kao sekretar pri Međureligijskom vijeću Bosne i Hercegovine. Potomak sam banja lučke porodice Levi, o kojoj sam prošle godine snimala jedan video o njihovom stradanju tokom Drugog svjetskog rata. Nažalost, samo dvoje iz te porodice je preživjelo, Milorad i Marko Novaković, koji su uz pomoć dobrih ljudi, zapravo porodice Klindиć, uspjeli da prežive. Nakon završetka snimanja videa o porodici, grad Banja Luka je postavio na svoju Facebook stranicu. Putem toga je i Sanja Klindиć, koja je potomak porodice Klindиć, vidjela taj snimak i javila se na zvaničnu stranicu Jevrejske opštine Banja Luka da pita više detalja o porodici, kako mojoj, tako i njenoj. Onda sam je ja putem svog ličnog profila kontaktirala. Nakon nekoliko dana ugostili smo nju i njenog oca Rajka Klindиća u prostorijama kulturnog centra, gdje smo malo više razgovarali o tom videu i o poznanstvu njene porodice sa mojom, pošto oni nisu bili upućeni u dešavanja koje su se odvijala tokom Drugog svjetskog rata. Njihova reakcija na taj snimak je bila zaista predivna, zato što bilo im je drago da je neko iz njihove porodice u to doba se odlučio da pomogne ipak Jevrejima, što je tad bilo zabranjeno i strogo kažnjivo. Nakon tog prvog sastanka u prostorijama kulturnog centra, počeli smo redovno da se čujemo i viđamo. Viđali smo skoro svake nedelje i sad se isto viđamo. Ljetovali smo čak zajedno te godine. Rodilo se onako jedno baš fino prijateljstvo. Porodica Klindиć je također jedna stara banjalučka porodica. Oni su bili posljednji stanovnici Gospodske ulice. Živjeli su u kući gdje se danas nalazi Zlatara. Kasnije su preselili u drugi dio grada. Zanimljivo je to što je tokom zadnjeg rata u Bosni i Hercegovini Sanja morala da napusti ili studirala u Sarajevu arhitekturu. Sticajem okolnosti morala je da napusti Bosnu i Hercegovinu. Otišla je za London, gdje je po preporuci drugarice našla posao u jednoj tradicionalnoj jevrejskoj porodici. To je onako što kaže, oni su je prihvatili kao ćerku. S njima je ostala, živjela, čak i studirala. I dan danas je s njima u kontaktu, ima i ključ od njihove kuće, baš su onako ostali povezani. Puno su joj pomogli. Pa možemo reći da je to, kako kažu, dobro sa dobrim vraća. Oni su nju prihvatili kao ćerku, ipak je ona tamo bila sama, nije imala nikog. Pomogli su joj da se snađe i da upiše školu i da se prilagodi životu u Londonu. Ona je dan danas tamo ostala i živi. Svake nedelje organizujemo onako zajednička druženja. Sanja, nažalost, nije tu, dođe kada je u mogućnosti, ne bude u Londonu, ali tu su njen otac Rajko, gospođa Đurđica i njen brat Igor Klindиć, tako da se onako porodično družimo nedeljom. S obzirom da Sanja živi u Londonu, pozvala me da dođem kod nje, međutim imala sam u planu, ali ova pandemija što nas je zadesila, to je sve odgodila, ali sigurno kad budu neka bolja vremena otiću. Da vidim i kako ona živi i uopšte kako žive Jevreji sa kojima je odrasla.
My name is Sanja Klindиć. I live and work in London. I've been living here since 1992. I work as a mouthful human resources business partner, which basically means I work in personnel at one of London's universities, namely Middlesex University. I have a pleasure of knowing Irena Levi Đorđević. We've met about 2 years ago, and how that came about is something that I will never forget. I traveled during the winter break, the New Year's holidays. I traveled back home to stay with my family in Banja Luka. And one evening I was in bed already and just checked through my Facebook feed, only to realize that there was a post by a Jewish cultural center. And there is a reason why Jewish Cultural Center notifications reach my account because I was actually looking to find out, prior to meeting and knowing about Irena, I was looking to find out a little bit more about Jewish population or way of life in Banja Luka. So it's late in the evening, it's late at night. I see this, I'm watching this video and listening to Irena's story about her grandmother, and in turn, a great-grandmother rather, and in turn her grandfather. And at some point, Irena talks about the gratitude they feel for family Klinditch that had helped. And it was a moment that still makes me have a goosebumps. I thought at first, no, surely it's not us, it's not my part of my family Klinditch, but as Irena described the location and whereabouts in the town, I knew actually that it must be a Klinditch family, part of that I belong to. And actually, as it turns out, that Irena was talking about my grandfather's brother, who lived close to Irena's family during the Second World War. I found that moment extraordinarily emotional, not only for being proud to my predecessors who seem to have had hand in helping someone, which is something that makes me incredibly proud, but also the realization that that was a Jewish family. And that was particularly poignant for me because my life now, and I will talk about it a little bit later, has a lot to do with Jewish family here. So going back at that moment of realization, I realized it's Klinditch, it's us, it's my family. I found Irena's details on Facebook. I contacted her that evening, explained who I was, and we've met. I think the next day or day after. She brought her dad, I brought my dad, and we talked. I just talked through the history and how to some extent, even without knowing, we lived in the same town, and it was just exciting to find out a little bit more. Irena and I, that subsequently, a couple of days later, before I had to leave, we met. Once again, Irena took me to Jewish Cultural Center and showed me around. And ever since, Irena and I have been in touch, not so intensely. Part of it has to go with geography. I'm here in London, but I'm very pleased that Irena is actually regularly in touch with my dad and my half brother and my dad's partner. It was one of the reasons for my goosebumps with that realization about it's the Jewish family that my ancestor helped, has to do, as I said, with my life here now. When I came in 1992, I did not know I will actually stay here. I never thought I would become a refugee. And what was extraordinarily lucky for me is that for the first 2 years of my life here, I lived with a Jewish, a religious Jewish family. Irena would probably say that there isn't such a thing as a coincidence, that what some would describe as luck, one would say that it was meant to happen. And I actually believe that. I had complete ignorance about anything in the way of history, religion, a Jewish way of life when I came here. And it was very different to my way of life, living and getting to know and understand a family of George and Tamara Weiss living here in North London and their 7 children, And it was all very different to me. But what was extraordinary from the beginning is that while I was somebody who came from Bosnia, I could have been staying for months too, maybe longer, and nobody could have known that my arrival will now turn to a quarter of a century friendship. And I would say even more, I feel they're my family. But what was immediately obvious to me is the kindness, the consideration for another human being, how considerate and caring that they are as a family. And I think a lot of that stems from what Jewish religion is teaching. So it was all very new to me, from keeping meat and milk separate and having 2 kitchens and all the cutlery and crockery and utensils for your milky food, and all the crockery and cutlery and dishwashers for your meaty, for your fleischig food. So it was certainly a cultural shock, but in a way that, since I felt so welcomed, no question that I had to ask at the time was silly. They were very patient, and I was very inquisitive and wanting to know a bit more. And that was prompted by their kindness, by accepting me as having me in their house, not as a stranger, but as integral part of their family. So I've been privileged to have George and Tamara Weiss and their children as now grown-up children who have the children of their own. They have them as my friends, and as I said, more than just friends. I feel they're a family. It just so happens that today, Sunday, on Friday night, I was invited to join them for Shabbos meal, which is always very special for me. And throughout all my life here, I can only talk with a lot of love and gratitude to the love and kindness that they've extended me, albeit a Bosnian girl with no Jewish ancestry, not that I'm aware of,